All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the next SPFBOX live author panels. I am so excited. This is the second one of the day, and we have William who's trying to join too. So hopefully William will be on in just a second. But we have Stephanie on, we have Nikki on, we have NP on, we have Craig on. Welcome. How are you guys feeling going into SPFBO?
Excited.
A little bit overwhelmed.
Hey, Jess. Yeah, I feel like this is the moment where we're all happy.
Yeah.
And also scared, but also happy. Oh, for those who are tuning in for the first blog of the day, hey Nina. We did a first panel at 2:15, and there's an entire SPFBOX playlist at the very top of my YouTube channel. So you can catch up there. We're going to have over 75 different authors in the course of the next 7 days between Mike and Rose Bald and Balding channel and then here on my channel. So their videos and mine are all together in that playlist. So hopefully everybody can tune in. Hey, Steve. Steve was actually on the first one. William, hi. Can't hear us. Oh, technology.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll give William a second to try to get connected on the audio. But while we're doing that, I'm meeting, I think, everybody here for the first time. I couldn't remember, Nikki, if we've met before or not on a live. No, so I think this is like the first time around the board. So why don't we go around and you can introduce yourself. Stephanie, I'll let you kick us off. We'll go around the circle and you could just let us know what kind of fantasy you write, what book you got in a SPFBO, and whether this is your first year, your third year, your fifth year going in.
Should we show our book covers?
Oh. Sure. Okay. Hi, I'm Stephanie Gillis. I'm a fantasy writer of many a genre. The book that I have in SPFBO, I call my contemporary fantasy. It is called, I brought it with me. It's the Humane Society for Creatures and Cryptids. And it's very fun. It's a very chunky book. And I worked very, very hard on it. It's my first year in SPFBO. I only heard about SPFBO actually from Covers with Cassidy a couple of years ago when I subscribed to her on YouTube. And that's where I learned it. But every time it came around, I either didn't have a book ready or I forgot about submitting. But this book just came out last year, so now it's the prime time. And I'm just happy to be here. It's super fun. I'm also a booktuber. I go by QWERTY on the internet. So I do a lot of book reviews and shenanigans. It's Jess and Nina are from my chat. And yeah, it's fun. I'm excited to be here. I honestly am just excited to be in the first round. Doesn't really matter to me if I get any further because now I get to learn about a bunch of new books and get to hang out with cool people. Fantasy. It is called. It's the Humane Society for Creatures and Cryptids.
We got an echo though, William.
There's an echo.
I think we actually might all just mute in between. That way there's no feedback.
I only heard about SPFBO actually from Covers with Cassidy a couple of years ago when I subscribed to her on YouTube. And that's where I learned it. But every time it came around, I didn't have a book ready or I. All
right, I think we're good. Technology. Nikki, welcome. Excited to have you on as well. You're glitching so bad, Nikki. I'm sorry. No. Instant replay. Play it again. Who stepped where? Yeah. All right. So, can you hear us okay, Nikki? All right. If if you want to hop out and back, we'll bring you back. We'll try to get both you and William back. Oh, gotta love the beginning of the Blitz. Thank you everybody for watching and sticking with us. A message from beyond. So NP, we're gonna cue you up. You just got skipped.
Okay, I'm NP Thompson, and I write kids fantasy. So, I had this is my first SPFBO. I've never done before. It was the same sort of thing as Stephanie. I've heard about it and thought maybe of doing it, but I just never remembered at the right time. So my book is called River of Crows, and it's about a boy who gets stuck in a magical world when he tries to save an injured bird. It's I'm so nervous. This is ridiculous.
It's okay. You're doing great.
Yeah, so I've never done SPFBO before.
Yay, first time.
Somebody brought it up a little bit a couple of weeks ago, I think. And I went and sort of looked it up, and I wasn't going to apply for it because when I looked at the previous ones, it all seemed to be really heavy in like the grimdark and the always all adult titles. So I thought, okay, well, this isn't for kids stuff. And then somebody said, well, we really wish there were some kids stuff in there. So I thought, okay, I'll give it a try, see what happens. So I was really not expecting to get through the lottery into this one. So that was kind of a shock. And I've just kind of been a little bit overwhelmed since then because I know nothing about SPFBO and I've been trying to catch up and still feeling really behind.
Well, I was ecstatic to see younger audiences represented this year, just across the board. I love that SPFBO has the wide representation that it does. And I was like, yes, there's middle grade authors this year, because it's not really about, the content, book versus book content, right? It's more about the quality, I guess, and the quality of the book in and of itself. And I think the finalists were on. We had a panel with them a couple nights ago and then again last night. And they were just saying that it's not like my book is better than your book or your book is better than my book, but it just recognizes the best of indie in general. And that was beautiful and connecting with the niche and everything. So kudos to you. You did it. You're in. The hardest part's over. And now we just wait and try not to angst too much. And we brought Nikki back and Williams back. Hey. So we're going to get to y'all too. Nikki, can you hear us good?
I can hear you good. Can you hear me okay?
Hey. Oh, goodness. So, Nikki, I'm going to let you pick up where you left off, if that's okay, Craig, and then we'll get to you, Craig.
Okay. I have no idea where I left off.
You were going to introduce a little bit about yourself, your book, how many times you've done SPFBO.
I believe I was in SPFBO 5, but then I'm a big Mark Lawrence fan, and I've watched it go by every year since then, and I've always had books available, but for some reason I've been like, I haven't got time, and I'm also horribly shy. So I'm kind of excited to do this year because I'm really trying to build up my social media presence and stuff. And so I've got my newest book in it, Warden's Son, Book 1, Child of Vanris. So I'm really, really excited to see if it even gets a positive comment somewhere. But I'm also excited to get a chance to meet all the new authors and to do some interacting and try and creep out of my shell a little bit. So yeah, I'm really happy to be here.
You're muted, Katherine.
Oh, I said introverts unite. My mentor told me back in 2020, she was just like, Katherine, you need to start doing these lives. You'll get more comfortable speaking in front of people, and then you'll feel better. And the more you do, the easier it'll get. And I was like, she lied. It didn't get easier. It's still just as hard, but it's fun enough that I continue to do it to myself around the board. But yeah, so welcome back. We got brand new. We've got people who've been here a couple times, and for some reason, we're still coming back. Craig, how about you? Tell us a little bit about yourself and SPFBO and your books.
Sure. Yeah. I'm Craig Montgomery. I write mostly YA fantasy. I published my debut novel last year, and that's actually the one that I entered. I only have an art copy, but it's A Circle of Stars. I mean, I have other copies. I just didn't think about bringing it in the room with me. So yeah, I found out about SPFBO around the time I was doing my pre-launch, and I was like, oh, that'd be really fun to enter. But I was publishing like 2 weeks after the deadline date for SPFBO 9. So when it came around this year, I just entered the book, and yeah. So I know of it from mutuals and stuff on social media, but this was just my first time entering.
Awesome. And you made it in with the lottery and everything the first year doing the self-published fantasy blog off lottery. For those who are watching, you're like, what is this? I forgot to mention at the beginning because we were trying to get everybody in. This is self-published fantasy blog off. Has 300 entrants that are assigned to 10 bloggers. And Mark Lawrence is amazing and organizes this for free every year. So I put Mark's link and everybody else on the call's links in the description box if you think, oh, their book sounds interesting, I want to look at it or follow the blog. But yeah, this year is the first time where it was not first come, first serve, 300 slots fill up and that's it. And it was open 24 hours. And then the 300 participants were randomly selected. And so it was pretty much a coin toss in the end, because we came super close to 600 people. So I honestly threw mine in not expecting to get in this year, but I saw Katie Andrews' post and she was like, if you're on the fence, just do it. And I was like, okay, I'm going to put Splitting Dawn in. And when Katie messaged me the next morning, she's like, congrats on making it in a SPFBO. I was like, say what now? Because I was just planning on reporting it again this year. I didn't think I was going to have a chance. But William, tell us a little bit about you. Is this your first year doing SPFBO? Are you coming back?
Oh, it's definitely my first year. And this is my first book, and I actually hadn't really heard much about indie authorship until I published a book. And I was like, maybe I should learn a little bit about what's out there. And I ran into SPFBO. It was almost one of the first things I found. And of course, I realized then that I had published about 4 or 5 weeks too late to get into it. And so I've been waiting all year for it.
So have you been practicing your pitch this whole time?
I probably should have been.
No, but all the strictness aside and pitchiness aside, we'd love to hear a little bit about which book you entered.
Oh, yes. So I entered a book called Metamancer. And it's a wizard coming of age story at the highest level. But I also, are we doing a describe the book part yet, or is that what we're?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so I'll start by saying some things that it's not. It's not a because some people get confused with the title because of the video game term Metamancer. It's not that. It's a mage who can modify magic, and so you wouldn't want to come into this book expecting a lot of huge battles or anything like that. It's actually more about the characters. It's also, even though there is romantic interest, it's not actually a romance. It's not written that way, right? But what it is about is sort of the way the environment and the people around you affect the course of your life, right? And so the main character starts out going one direction and things happen, and his decisions then lead him to become a wizard, essentially. And there's and it's really about the character and the process and trying to, how does that happen, especially in a world where wizards are not exactly well regarded, because he starts out with all the advantages, but still winds up a wizard.
Yeah. Steve, love character-driven books. So did the bloggers last year. We were talking to the finalists, and I was like, all of your books were strong character-driven books. So it's very interesting. I'm curious to know, because you got all the practice waiting. It's like a 10-month-long process.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's a good way of bringing in what's your approach. And William, I'll let you start, and then we'll go the opposite way around. What's your approach going into SPFBO this year? Are you planning on being like super, super active, or are you going to unplug and plug back in? You're going to just hold your breath and wait till it's over?
I'm going to play it by ear. I mean, right now I'm having a lot of fun with it. I do have a real job though. So, I have to limit somewhat how much time I put into it. I'm not going to have time to read all the other books, things like that, but.
Yeah, no worries. I don't think there's any expectation for everybody to read all 300 books. Last year, I was like, I want to read all the books. And I opened it up and I was like, oh, well, I've already read 82 of the books from previous stuff. So I was like, well, now I only have, 200 and, what was it, 128, 118 books. This year, I opened it up. I was like, I have not read 82 of the books this year. And I didn't get all 300 last year, so I'm not going to try to get all 300 this year. But I would like to read some. Yeah. How about you, Nikki? What's your philosophy going in for this year?
Just have to remember how to use the computer. And I'm sorry if it moves a lot. I'm actually recovering from ankle surgery, so I'm in a odd spot. But so I'm trying not to move too much here.
Yet you love us enough to be here even after ankle surgery.
I couldn't miss. This is a big chance. My approach, I mean, I've really been bad. This book is number 14 for me, and I have been a terrible marketer, terrible about reaching out because I just hide behind my books, so I'm excited to get into this and actually get a chance to interact with people and come out of my shell a little bit. I mean, this is like terrifying, but I can't run away because I'm crippled. My ankle isn't going anywhere. So it's good. But yeah, and this is a book I'm very, very proud of. So I'm excited to see, how people receive it. So yeah, I hope this turns into a good opportunity to learn to come out of that shell a little bit and put my books out in the world a little more actively.
Yeah, absolutely. And Craig, how about you?
I guess I'm involved. It's kind of one of those things where this is a little bit hands off. There's not much we can do aside from like engaging with the community when they're there. I like the Discord's nice that we can kind of talk with the other authors in there. That's fun. So I'll probably, I guess, watch the blog that I got assigned to see how they're doing with their rankings and stuff, but I will likely not let myself look too much because I don't want to get my hopes up. I think it's just healthier to kind of just like, if it's a fun surprise, it's a fun surprise.
Yeah, and you're in Queen's Book Asylum, right?
Yeah, I am.
Yeah, so there's no telling how it's going to go.
Yep.
I mean, I was looking back through prior years and I was going, wow, you don't ever really know on their team which ones they're going to like, which, as we said earlier, is a good thing. It's not like, oh,
yeah,
well, if my book doesn't have this, it's going to not do well here. But
they have a couple new judges this year too. So even their team switched up from previous times. So it'll be interesting to see how things play out.
Yeah. Speaking of bloggers and teams, NP, you're on Lynn's books, right? And Critiquing Chemist.
Yeah, Lynn's books and Critiquing Chemist.
So you got some heavy duty fantasy lovers on yours. How are you feeling going in? I mean, they all love fantasy, obviously, but it's like, whoo.
Yeah, it's I'm like I said, I'm still trying to find my feet with this. There seems to be a lot going on, but I'm not even aware of, I think, even a fraction of what is going on with this. So I think the only reason I knew that there were panel discussions was I just happened to be in the Discord server at the time you had a post come up. I'm like, oh, okay. But I honestly have no idea what else is going on. So, but I mean, that's kind of the story of my life anyway. I have no idea what's happening.
So you're here to soak it all in and enjoy being along for the ride this go round, learning all the things.
Yeah, I think I'm probably going to do what Craig was talking about and just sort of like check once in a while and see how things are going. But I don't want to get my hopes up either. Like I think,
it's a lot
from
of
what I
fun.
understand, I think the vast majority of the books are going to be eliminated in like within a month.
Yeah.
Is that's how this works?
So it's going to depend on the blog. And last year was my first year, and it was very overwhelming. And Kareem was like, somebody needs to do a SPFBO News Weekly deal where it's like, here's everybody who's still here. And it just made me think of the Hunger Games, you know, cannon in the sky, like all hail our fallen tributes or something. And so I kept waiting afterward. I was like, is anybody else going to do that? And about a month and a half in, I was like, okay, I will do it. I will volunteer to do these things, and started doing SPFBO News just to be like that. But that's what it was like. It's like, okay, we're all going to raise glasses for the newest fallen blog. And this year I'm going to try to do it from the start. But I think there are, like last year, Esme was rearing to go, right? Like in Weatherwax, because Esme's already started and has read several of her books this year and is posting about them on Twitter. And I'm assigned to her blog this year. So I'm trying not to look. It's like,
so it sounds like people in her blog, you know, might last about 3 days.
Yeah, I think last year she was nice and posted some of the safes first, I want to say. And then was like, okay, now we're going to rip the Band-Aid off. But I'm one of those people that's like, you know what, Esme, if you're going to chop me, just chop me day one. I'll still love you and adore your blog. I just don't want to hang on if you know you don't like it. Just go. But no, they put a lot of time into it. It's just some people, I think, get started earlier. And then some of the bloggers have real lives and jobs and stuff outside, and it takes them longer to read. So I know there are some that they're like waiting till the last month, and they're like, am I safe or am I not safe? And Stephanie, you're nodding. What's your philosophy going in this year?
Well, I'm pretty involved, like in the kind of like at least the indie booktube world, or the booktube world in general. So I plan to be pretty active, not like actively like promoting, here's my book, look at my book or anything like that. But I am a book reviewer as well. It's kind of one of my dreams to be one of the SPFBO judges. So I'm actually, William was actually there just yesterday. I am doing, I do a series called Will It TBR. And I did this for CL Cannon's book fair, where I went through every single entry and decided if it was go on to my personal TBR or not. And I'm doing that with the 300. So yesterday I went through all of the books that were in Fantasy Faction. And so I'll be going through each blog. It takes a couple hours to go through each one and just kind of looking at them, discerning whether or not they'll go into my TBR, and I will read them because I read like a crazy person. I just read my 100th book yesterday. But I love to read, and I love supporting the indie community. So some of the other people that are in, I actually told them like, hey, get your book in, go submit. So I'm actually in the same group of one of my best friends. And so I'm like, I'm mad we're both in the same category, which means we can't like, battle together on that level, but it's fine. It's cool. But so yeah, I'm going to be pretty active.
The only two that read all 300.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think I'll read all 300 just because some are just like not my genre, or like just they have a trope I don't particularly like or something. Yeah. So I plan to be as active as I can be. I'm active regularly on, my own channel and on TikTok and stuff like that. I do have a day job, it's not my thing, but I work from home for the most part of my day job. So it's easy for me to always have the Discord open and be able to comment. Although I'll say our Discord right now for this is like a little overwhelming because there's so many people in it. So I feel weird sometimes being like, hey, check out this live stream, come hang out, when it's like in the middle of 5 different conversations. But yeah.
Yeah. So more involved, but still can be overwhelming even if you're used to being involved. Nina, do you all get copies of each other's books? No, we don't. Although I will just say, hands down, a lot of people have marked their books to free, to 99 cents. Mm-hmm. And a lot of authors, if someone reached out and was like, hey, I can't afford a 99-cent book because I'm trying to get all these books, but I want to read your book and give it an honest review, or I want to read your book just in general, would give you an ARC copy too a lot of times. So it's like,
yeah, I've seen a lot of ARC swaps on the Discord already, so that's been pretty cool.
Yeah, there's ever a fellow author who's like, I just can't, but I really do want to read the book, message me. But yeah, so, and then I don't think we talked about William, how you're feeling about, your blog. You're in Fantasy Book Critic, which is the blog I was in last year. And you got some great competition, but your book looks really good too.
Yeah, I mean, it's to be expected. There's going to be other good books, the blogger I'm assigned to seems like a pretty good blogger, so that's good. And gives reviews that, the ones I watched so far that she's done, she seems to talk about the good points even if she doesn't like something. So yeah. I'm just looking for a good review. That's what I want.
And good meaning, hopefully something we can take away from and learn from and stick on the back of our cover, right?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't have, different people like different things. So we'll see.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a lot going in. And I know, especially for the first timers, it's a little overwhelming, but it's a lot of fun. And the community is a major aspect of what we are doing. So if there are readers or fellow writers who are interested in your genre, who don't know much about you, I've plugged your links in the description box, but would you mind going around, and NP, you want to start us off this time, just sort of going around and talking a little bit about what is coming up? Because sometimes I think readers are hesitant to grab a first in series because they're like, is there anything else? So do you have other books? Is yours a standalone? What can readers expect?
So River of Crows was my debut. It is the first in series, and the third book actually just came out at the beginning of the month. So it's kind of been a really jam-packed month for me. It's like, do you want a summary of sort of what the book's about, or?
Yeah, go ahead.
So bored 7th grader Ty Baxter dreams of adventure, but when he tries to save an injured bird, he finds himself stranded in the magical world of Arcania. And he has to learn how to master his newfound magic that suddenly just appears. He learns something that sort of triggers his latent magical abilities with explosive consequences. And he sort of starts struggling, trying to control this magic that he doesn't know how to use, wasn't aware that even could happen because he's from our world. So magic is a whole weird thing to him. And he has to do this, figure out how to use his magic before the brutal dark sorcerer emperor of Arcania tracks him down and transforms him and all his friends into crows and enslaves them in his enchanted army of crows. So
wow.
It's it was actually inspired by, I don't know, I'm sure this happens in other cities, but in the city where I am, there's this huge flock of crows. There were like 60,000 of them. And they roost in this big field near the general hospital downtown. And in the fall and in the winter, you can see them crossing the sky every single night and every single morning. So they go out from the roost in the morning looking for food. And then at night, they go back to the roost for safety and warmth for the night. And I love watching them. They wave and they flow, and it really is like a river of crows in the sky. And that phrase, river of crows, it just stuck in my head, and I just kept thinking, that would make such a great book title. And then I just finally got around to writing the book. So it's kind of been like a labor of love for me. The first book, I was like a big learning curve, but it's getting really good reviews. And I actually just got a really good one from the Canadian Teacher magazine, which was really exciting because I hadn't known they'd actually done one. So it's been really gratifying just to see how well it's been received so far. I've gotten great feedback from teachers and librarians and stuff as well. So it's been pretty exciting. And getting the first one it took me 6 years to write my first book, because I think you really have to get out of your own way with the first one, because a part of you is always thinking, can I write a book? I mean, like, it's a whole book. I've never done this before. I'm not like a trained writer. I don't have my MFA in creative writing. But then when I finally got it done, and it was just such a feeling of accomplishment to hold this book in my hands for the first time. And like my cover artists, they did an amazing job. I love my cover. And then after that, it was just, I did have a bit of a slump with the second one, because after the first book comes out and you're writing a series, it's like you get that sort of sequel slump where it's like, oh, I have to make sure this is at least as good as the first one. So there's a lot of pressure. And then the third one was actually easier. So, and I'm getting faster. It was 6 years for the first one. It was 3 years for the second one. And it was just over a year to get the third one done. And I'm halfway through book 4 already. So I'm hoping that one will be out by the end of the year. So.
That's awesome. So not a long wait. You can pick up the first one and then read the second one and then read the third one. It's super exciting. And thank you for sharing your journey too. I love just hearing other authors and their stories. And sometimes people are like, what does indie even mean? It means we do 100% of all the work ourselves, or we find somebody to do it for us, right? So, yeah.
I mean, I do have a professional editor that I've hired and like the cover designer and stuff, but it's...
Yeah, you got to find them. You got to vet your editors. You got to vet your
Those are things everyone should always have.
They are.
They're like writer, marketer, project
I don't
manager.
think people have any idea really how much work goes into indie books. It's you really have to love what you're doing to do this to yourself, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Nikki, how about you? What do readers have if they dive into your book for SPFBO?
Okay, well, a little about the book first. So main character Casil was found at the age of 5 with the pointed ends of his ears cut off. But he was taken in and raised by a man living in the southern kingdoms that are at war, actually, with the kingdom he came from. So he's been kind of hiding out down there, being raised by this man and living a very peaceful, sheltered life until mercenaries show up hunting for him. But then he's rescued from the mercenaries by a group from the country he was born in, and they're taking him back there to his original home and to a father whose name strikes fear into the people from where he's from, where he was raised. And he now knows nothing of his native culture or their language or the psychic powers that some of them have that it turns out he might also have. So it's kind of a bit of a coming of age, found family type story about, this young man who's being ripped out of the world he grew up in and asked to come back to the country that they're at war with and try and fit in there and find his place. There's a lot of, excuse me, a lot of, deep friendship stuff, a lot of war, politics, magic, a little bit of romance here and there. It is the first in a 4-book series. All 4 books are written. Book 2 came out in April. Book 3 just went to the editor today, and book 4 is early in my editing process, so they'll all be out by the end of the year. And it's been a really exciting journey for me. I mean, this is book 14, so it's not the first book, but I've been very excited about this one, and it's been really well received by, ARC readers and beta readers, and so far they've liked each new book better than the last one, which is very encouraging. Except it's also a lot of pressure because you've got to keep that up. But yeah, I mean, I started, my very first book was actually, I got an agent and a publisher, and it was not a great experience for me. I didn't love working with the publisher. I actually really liked my agent, but she was also more focused on the younger YA stuff, and most of my work is more adult focused epic fantasy. So I've been doing the self-publishing thing for quite a while now, and I love working with the the artists I have, with the editors, with all these people, getting to work directly with them is so worth it. So I'm excited to be doing this. It's definitely a lot of work, though, like MP was saying.
Yeah.
Oh, the title of this series is called The Warden's Son.
Yes. Thank you for sharing. 14 books under your belt. That's a lot of experience. Yay. So, William, how about you? We heard a little bit about your book, but what else do you have if readers pick up and get hooked on your book? And then they're like, what else is there?
Right. So this is my first book, and I don't have any others published yet, but I've been writing this book since 1993. It actually began as a final project for a creative writing fiction class, and we were supposed to write a short story. My short story was 27 pages, and it's grown from there. And over those years, I've been having ideas and adding it and making notes and improving it for a long time. And I have at least 3 or 4 books of material that I'm planning on writing, and I'm actually most excited about some of the stuff in the later books, and I'm just trying to get to it. So there's definitely be more coming out. And, I'm not doing it full time, so it may take a year or 2, but it should be coming.
Yeah, but a year is not long. And there's so many other books to read. If people are on here picking up books from SPFBO, it's like read Williams and then grab Craig's or Stephanie's or Nikki's or NB's and then come back and get Williams' next one.
Oh, yeah. I actually did want to touch on one other thing. I get categorized as YA a lot, but I just wrote the book that I want to read. so it's not, I wasn't thinking YA, and I don't think it's very YA. It just happens that the Wizard coming of age always gets shelved there.
Yeah, I have the same problem. I think that happens a lot.
I think there's something to be said for the fact that we have gotten away in fantasy a little bit, maybe in the indie scene, from the ones that are made for the whole family. Right? It's like, okay, this is the kind of book that you could read if you were younger, but that an adult can read just as much. And you go back and pick up some of these other books and you're like, whoo, there's some stuff in The Hobbit that I'm like, younger me didn't catch that, but grown-up me is like, aha, Tolkien.
Yeah. And the Amazon categories and metadata that they allow you to put in are terrible. I mean, like I wanted to say 11 to 111, right? And you can either say YA or adult, and you can't say both on their platform. Their categories are a mess, in my opinion. But
so you're hearing it here now from William that yes, you can read the books if they're adult or young adult, 11 to 111. Here we go.
I think that's true for a lot of books too. I think, and also like I don't want to. I have an entire soapbox about this personal this conversation about like YA and how people are responding to YA. Like it's not a negative thing to be YA, but I was in that same category of like I guess this book is YA, even though like there's some adult and some YA content, but also in the publishing world, a lot of times, even just being a woman writer in fantasy, they automatically put you as YA. That's why like the Sarah J. Maas stuff for the longest time was categorized as YA, even though it is not. So
it's also the issue too, like especially like when you're doing the kids stuff, is because mine was originally like it was designed. I wrote it specifically to target that gray area between middle grade and YA, which is like the worst possible place to put a book, because they want it has to be MG or it has to be YA, and ne'er the twain shall meet. But it's a really underserviced area, I find. And like when you're poking around on the socials and teachers are they're begging for this stuff. They're looking for stuff that fits that gray area. So like, I still honestly, sometimes people will say it's MG and some people will say it's YA. And I always sort of think of it as upper middle grade or lower YA. But like I've also had adults tell me that they just loved it. They said their younger selves would have loved it, but they really enjoyed it as an adult as well. So like it's exactly what you were saying about how we used to have these fantasy books that the whole family could read and enjoy, right? So it's I don't know. I'm glad that we're sort of getting back to some of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
And Indy's sort of bridging that gap a little more because we have less to lose and all to gain.
yeah, maybe that's what it is. It's like because you're not dealing with the pressure of like a publisher or an agent saying, "Yeah, no, we can't sell this. You're going to have to age up your main character." But I don't know.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah,
Yeah,
no, I'm
this-
not going to. He's 12.
That's not the story.
Yeah. It's frustrating when you're looking for family books. Yeah, it can be. So, Stephanie, people can follow your reviews and everything. But what about your other books?
Oh yeah. They can follow a lot of it. So I lovingly call this HISFACAC for short. Just FYI, if you're hearing me say HISFACAC, this is what I mean, because it's just easier than going Humane Society for Christians and Cryptids every single time. So this is not my debut book. My debut series is called The Ashport Archives. That's an adult urban fantasy series. It's 4 books. It's fully complete, and has prequel novellas as well. So that they can fully go check it out. It's also the first book's on Audible. I'm the one narrating though, so that takes a long time. I'm currently working on producing the second book in that series, and eventually this one will also. But this book is about 4 main characters. So I have 4 different POVs. I tend to write big casts and big books. And this one's almost 600 pages. It is about 3 sisters who are Melpomene, Calliope, and Talia, who live in the middle of the woods in a fictional town in Colorado. In a small mountain town that hates them because they think they're all witches. They've lived in this house for generations. Their great-great-great-great-great-grandparents came over from Greece with a bunch of mystical creatures that they're trying to protect. They do have Bigfoot here, and she's probably the best character. Her name is Harriet. And a new girl in town, Asha, who is the 4th POV, comes in and learns about this. She falls in love with one of the sisters. Each of the sisters is kind of going through their own personal, I don't want to say trauma. One of them for sure is an SA survivor, but they all have generational trauma as well. Their dad is missing, or their dad is dead. Their mom is missing, and just trying to keep it all together. So this was a big like therapeutic book for myself because each of the sisters is a part of me in a way. So this can be read as a standalone. It is the beginning of a series, but the rest of the books are companions. So we'll still have these characters in the next ones, but they will be minor versus the main on page. So you can read this as a standalone, whereas Ashport, it's a full series and it follows like one main character like that. Currently, it's in the works of the sequel. I'm still in the developing stages. It takes a lot for all the creatures in here. There's little info packs on each one at the start, but I have to build that little bibli, as I call it, for the next one, which is going to be very botanically based. So that's the current stage of that book, but I am working on a completely different cozy fantasy romance right now that I'm very excited about doing. So, and I have a ton of short stories because in 2022, during all the COVID fun times, I did a practice in writing shorter books because, as you can see, I write the big books. And I did genre hopping. So every single month I wrote in a different genre. And now I'm editing and publishing those this year. I'm almost done. I've got 8 of them out right now. We're just getting the rest of the cover art, and then everybody will be out. But that was a fun experiment, just working in other genres and stuff. So if you want little like bite-sized fiction and one nonfiction, then those are easy to pick up. Everybody's on KU, and they're all available on my Ko-fi shop as well, which is a great way to support your little content creators and stuff. So that's my book.
That's awesome. And Craig, your PR agent left us.
Well, he's still here. I just put him down in my lap. He was, this is Duncan.
He looks so much
Duncan.
like my cat, except he's so slim. Mine's a chunky little thing.
Is there going to be a moment where we all need to bring out our animals? I've got 2 dogs and a parrot here. Just let me know if we whip them
I have
out.
a cat on my foot. Craig's took the plunge for all of them and was like, all right, it's time to make us known that these books didn't write themselves.
It's true.
Oh, Craig, how about you? What other books do you have for readers to pick up and take a look at?
Sure. Yeah. I'll do the spiel too, because I didn't do that. So A Circle of Stars is the first book in a duology. This will be a 2-book series. The second book goes out to my dev editor at the beginning of June. So it's written, and I'm starting the editing process. I'm hoping to publish it by the end of the year, but it's kind of going to depend on how my revisions go through edits. I don't do well with deadlines, so I'm trying to give myself a lot of space so I feel free. But this is a story of, it's upper YA is what I say. It's a story of an 18-year-old boy who gets kidnapped across the universe to be a star-chosen hero. The magic system in this book is based off the zodiac, so it's astrology-based magic, and he is, I mean, you can basically call him like the avatar of this world. He has all 12 zodiac powers. But very quickly, once you get into it, you realize that he's not there to be a hero. He's actually there to be a political pawn. And there's a lot of political intrigue here of abuse of power and things like that. And yeah, it's a queer normative world. There's a Achillean romance. It's a gay romance between two boys at the center of it, about coming of age, finding yourself. That's basically it. But yeah, so the second book will be coming out sometime in the next year.
Yay.
Yeah.
Love that we don't have to wait too terribly long. Oh, Steve's on like, ooh. Getting a lot of love about the books. Yes, definitely got
yeah, queer
LGBT
books.
representation this year. Love the cover of that one, Stephanie. My daughter loves Stephanie's book. Yeah, thank you all for showing up in the comments too. Okay, so my TBR has grown, LOL. Yeah, and then mine is Splitting Dawn this year, and I am in Esme's blog. I'm scared but honored, but scared at the same time. Mine is a dark epic fantasy with a romantic reverse harem subplot, sort of, but it's not the key focal point of the book, really. And mine has a series of novellas as well, sort of like you were saying, Stephanie, except mine are like two of the novellas were from prequel novellas, essentially, for the villain in this book. And then I've got
I love a villain POV
that are post book one, in between book two. So it's like there's some novellas. There's a whole collection of 5 of them. If you like the first full-length book, you can go read the novellas. Yeah, an average, how many books do you read before you start writing your first book? Whew, that's hard. I started writing with like a crayon on construction paper, but I don't know that counts. If
Me too.
The question might also be, when did you start actually like publishing? Because I think most of us here probably started writing very young because it's in our blood. And that's okay if that's not the case either. But I don't think it's necessarily about the quantity of books you've read. It's about the quality and what you've learned from them. Because as writers, we should be readers. We don't have to be, like avid readers who read 100 books before May's over, but that's fine. But I think it's about when you feel it's right for you. It's a very personal experience. So, and reading outside of your genre also can be very, 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 very helpful in learning different means of narrative and prose. So give yourself a good smattering of books, and if you have an idea, just roll with it,
Yeah, I think it's very critical to have
everybody else y'all are welcome to answer too.
Very critical to have a sense of how stories go, and the best way to get that is by reading lots of stories. So
yeah, it's a personal thing. It kind of, the only way you can figure it out is if you start trying, and you're not really going to find out where you're struggling and what's hard for you until you start trying. Because like NP said, that was the first book she wrote and it worked really well for her. And that does happen for people But this was the fourth book I wrote, like my fourth completed manuscript, before I felt like I was ready to share my work that way. And it kind of just depends on your brain, the way that you approach storytelling, when you find the right idea that resonates for you. It
Right.
varies between literally every single author.
Right. I'm on my first book, but I'm pretty happy with the result because I've been rewriting it for like years, like decades. So
Yeah, I actually am one of the weird ones who I wrote almost 10 books before I tried to get into actually having anything published, just because it's what I love to do. So
I had actually started with nonfiction. I had about 6, I think, nonfiction books out before I moved into the fiction writing.
Okay.
So it's not my first book in general, but my first fiction book.
Yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes there's you have to have the two together, right? You can't read a whole ton and then write one book and be like, oh, well, that book wasn't as good as Stephen King, right? Because Stephen King's first books probably weren't the quality of his later books either. It's like a mix. The more you read, the more you write, the better you get. I just inhale sci-fi books, but I have never written a sci-fi book. So chances are, if I ever tried to put my pen to paper with sci-fi, it is not going to be of the same quality that my epic fantasy books are that I've been writing for 10 plus years. So,
that was my genre when I was younger too, was hardcore sci-fi.
I love sci-fi.
I like reading. I don't know if I could. I don't know if I could write a sci-fi. I have to try it someday just to see if I can do it.
That's why I did my genre hop.
See the light of day.
Literally, the first short story I drew, because I pulled them out of a hat of what I was doing each month in 2022. Sci-fi was the very first one, and it was so hard. I love sci-fi, but that was brutal. But also, like what Nina's saying, you can often see when the author is not a reader. I've unfortunately met so many authors who are like, oh, I don't read at all. And you can tell so fast, because usually their grammar's terrible and like their sentence structure is awful, and it's like, okay, you wanted to, like, it's a weird thing to not want to participate in the thing that you're doing.
Yeah,
in that sense, it's like it's almost kind of self-centered in a way to only want to produce and show what I can do, but not intake anyone else's work.
I don't know.
It doesn't make sense to me, but there are people out there who do that, and I don't trust them.
Everybody has their own thing. I also find that with reading, after even just the process of publishing and really wrapping up a book, now when I read, I see different things, right? So.
Yeah, I feel like when you do the publishing process, you actually read a little bit differently after that, because you know so much more about what to look for and notice more things. And I was worried it would take the joy out of it, but I honestly think in a way it's kind of more fun now. So
Actually, I just had fun reading a book that I found on Amazon that was 1 star, and it had been 1 star for 12 years. It was terrible, but it was kind of fun to see how terrible it was. It was right. And there were a few interesting bits in it still. So I mean, it was justifiably low rated, but it was still fun because you could see some of the things he was doing. And also it was interesting to see what happens when you don't do all the things you worked so hard to do in a book.
I think that the 1 star ratings are actually hilarious, because there's a TikToker who convinces you to read books, but by reading their 1 star reviews. If you've ever seen her, I forget the name of it, but you can definitely find it. It's usually like very popular, amazing books, and it's just 1 star reviews that she reveals. And I feel like even doing that, people are intrigued no matter what the rating. If it's, for them, and especially like a bitter 1 star review or a snarky one are actually great for marketing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I know there's a lot of opinions about writers sharing reviews. We're not going to really get bogged down a whole lot in there. I think Steve in SPFBO 9 had a very positive way of addressing it, because Steve is on the Before We Go blog now. Congratulations, Steve. But instead of posting, honest yet could be critical reviews of peers, Steve posted this thread that was like positivity. So here are these books that have positive things about them, and it like rose the boat. So, as someone who used to review books, and this year I've taken a pause just to step back and readdress, now that I'm a writer more than a reviewer, where you fall in that, because I'm known for blatantly honest reviews. It's very difficult to get a 5-star review from me. Like, how do I maintain the integrity? Because the people who follow me on Readsy Discovery are following me for those blatantly honest reviews, without also being seen as knocking down my peers, which is not something I ever want to do, as much as spotlight the ones that truly deserve to shine. And so that's why I've stepped back. I feel like that's a very personal decision, but across the board in SPFBO, we're here to bring the spotlight to the fact that there are amazing indie books. This is a celebration of what indie books are and can be, and what this community can be, if we all band together and really work hard to help each other improve. And yes, I do think editors play a part in that. Good cover designers who do all this quality art for us. Someone was on and said that they did their art for free, which just blew me away, because the art was so beautiful. And so it's coming together and being that celebration. And that's what I hope for in the Blitz, is that when we walk away from the Blitz, we have these connections with each other as peers that are ready to lift each other up. And so if you're watching in the chat and you're like trying to get into writing, publishing, thinking about SPFBO, and this feels daunting, just put your foot out there. We're a nice, friendly group for the most part. Don't be scared by the fact that we're scared of what's going to happen to our books in SPFBO. Oh, so thank you all so much for joining me today. I am super excited to have just gotten to meet all of you for the first time. I wish you all the best.
Thank you so much, and good luck to you too.
Yes.
Yeah, thanks for having us on. This was nice of you to organize.
Yeah, thank you.
I
Good
can't
luck to everybody.
You.
It's looking like. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. It is my pleasure. And if you're watching and you want to meet more SPFBOX authors, subscribe to the channel or watch my Twitter if you're watching on Twitter right now, because we have a lot more going on now through Saturday. The next one is at 8:30 p.m. Central tonight. So in about 3 hours, you're going to meet another great group of people. And the replays will be available on the playlist. So I understand this is international. If you can't make it, you can catch up with people there. Thanks so much, everybody. Take care. Bye.
Bye.